So we are back with episode 2 of Functionally Delusional. The gentleman across from you is Gabe from Rational Typology. Turns out we are going to make this a series, so you guys are in for a treat, and we actually have topics this time. Gabe came up with a really interesting idea. Let's talk about the idea of nihilism, but I also want to talk about nihilism as it relates to the INTJ, maybe some tips on how to not fall into some sort of like nihilistic, fatalistic trap in either like the way you perceive the world or just like falling into sort of like a stupor or like lethargic lifestyle based on that. So
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of different definitions. There's a Nietzschean definition of nihilism, but Gabe, why don't you kind of start on letting us know what you think about the topic, or do you have a precise definition for you?
Well, what I learned is that there's many different ways to define it, but for like a low resolution way of thinking about it, it's the belief that nothing inherently matters.
Okay. Is that I think that is what the dictionary would say is the definition of it. I've read a couple things from people that have interpreted Nietzsche, and they said that it's actually um, like the most hyper realistic way to think about the world. Sort of like
Well,
there's no. Sorry, go ahead.
well, by that definition, I am a nihilist. Like
Okay.
that is the most sound conclusion you can get to, because then you'd have to consent to the idea that there is a fundamental purpose, and but then it's like, why would that exist across species? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Now, do you think that people get confused with fatalism, that like nothing you do matters?
Yeah, yeah, which I don't agree with, because things that you do matter to you and to people around you. Because for me, the way to escape the trap is to focus on the experience itself. Like, uh, are you adding to your experience and the experience of people around you in a positive way?
So nihilism inherently is not positive or negative. There's no value a system assigned to it.
No.
Okay.
Well, I guess it excludes things like gods, because it would have to. Because then, if there were gods, there'd be an inherent purpose.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think one of the important things to distinguish is that fatalism is just resigning to the fact it's like a negative form of predestination, where it's just like nothing you do matters. Some people get ahead, some people don't. Good people die for no reason. Bad people get ahead. It's like that sort of resigning to basically just like, why don't you off yourself then? I mean, that's always my conclusion.
Well, it's like if nothing, like if everything's pointless, then why do anything? Yeah, like it's like that's when it can get unhealthy, I think.
The funny part about it is I think that people that subscribe to the idea of fatalism really kind of almost market themselves as like that thing and kind of can become popular by saying nothing matters. But definitely they actually don't want to they do not want to not exist. They would love to keep existing.
Yeah, but that's because you want to, and that gets back to my position, where if you want to do it and it adds to your existence and people around you in a positive way, then you should do it.
Okay. Do you think that the INTJ is the most susceptible to falling into, or I won't say falling into, but I guess on both sides, the positive side of nihilism and then like
Yeah,
also the negative side? Are we more susceptible?
I think so, and this is my reasoning for it. Um, I think that most INTJs are good at predicting things. That's kind of our whole setup. We are for predicting. Like if we were a video game character, we would be that would be our class. The guys that predict stuff, or the girls. And and from a relatively young age, you'll be able to figure out other people's failure states. So that is to say, what will make other people mess up, and you'll probably try to tell the people how to not mess up, and then they will ignore you, and that'll happen every time. But mostly, and that mostly happens to INTJs. It happened to INFJs as well, but not to the same extent.
Why not? Is this so because there's the FE versus TE, or why what's the difference?
Um, because TE is responsible for looking at how things technically operate, and FE is more about measuring emotions. So they might like with INFJs, they might focus on an approach where they will be more agreeable to try to get people to understand and then help them through that method. They're also more likely to be susceptible to like spirituality and religion in general. So they're less likely to be a nihilist as a result.
I found that in reading about INTJs, famous INTJs, they're the spiritual part of it sounds like when they're younger, they deny it. Then they realize there has to be a creator or some sort of profound entity at work.
I I know that they think that, and I think that's because they don't want to admit that they're the ones responsible for their experience. But that is me mind reading as well.
Okay. No, it's a good point. I so you're mind reading you're interpreting what they're saying, or what do you mean by mind
Yeah.
reading?
Oh, like making assumptions about how people think when I don't actually know.
Well, that's the whole arrogance that comes up where it's like, how do you know, or who are you to say that this is going to be my failure? Because you just talked about like, I know why people are going to fail or succeed.
Yeah, well, that's like predicated on their standards, not mine. It's like what they don't want to happen. No, I don't like if they wanted to have like a pointless argument with their partner for 6 hours, and I'm like, well, you got the job done. Good job. Leading tension, but whatever.
Okay. So if you flip it into like the positive side of like I know how you might fail, but you can also predict just as easily how someone could succeed and even how you could succeed, like you self-reflectively, but you can't when you're, I mean, it takes a while.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
and it's hard. It's hard to make good predictions.
so in the same way that I'm on a tangent just for a second. So the same way that you talk about how like you know that certain types guaranteed will produce more emotions with FI. And the same way, do you say that INTJs, INFJs will produce more predictions?
Uh, INTJs will definitely produce many predictions because that's like how the thought process plays out. It's like you make predictions and see if they fail. And
Okay,
yeah, and that's different to how other thought processes work. Yeah, but a lot of it happens unconsciously.
of course. And then the insights just come and you trust them.
Well, no, like it seems mysterious, right? And I'm sure you're familiar with that experience,
Right.
where where it's like you knew something was going to happen, but the reason for it is just like mysterious.
And then have you figured out a way to try to articulate it, or you just go with, I don't know how, I don't know where it came from, or do you try to work backwards logically?
I do try to do that, and to like see what my thought processes are around it, because just because they're unconscious doesn't mean they have to stay unconscious. So I've learned how to like examine unconscious processes and then make further addendums to them.
What, through like yoga or something? Hallucinogenics?
Um, I don't take drugs at this stage, and I haven't for years. Like I feel like it's pointless to me at this point.
Same.
Um, um, I do it through a process of meditation, but it's become like so internalized. I just kind of do it like like I kind of think about how to do it. So it's
Okay.
I don't like I don't go into some like into some like position or anything. It's
Like
like
a trance state. Okay.
yeah. Just like I'll
Okay.
focus on this process.
I am 31, and then I think when I was like 18, 19, really undeveloped in the process, I felt like I was in the fatalist part of my life where I was like, nothing matters. It doesn't, like, I felt comfortable knowing that it didn't matter or that there was just this predestined, like, some people are meant for success, others are not. I have no control over it. At what point do you realize that you actually absolutely have control and you can like make an impact on the direction you go?
Well, I was in a very similar headspace around the same age as you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I was really miserable. So I think I think it's kind of understanding that even if things are unfair for reasons that you have no control over, that doesn't mean that you're still not responsible for yourself. Like you still are responsible for yourself and what you do. So even if you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, you can still do stuff about it.
Yeah. I already see that. I mean, the feedback is going to be like, well, different socioeconomic background. You have like it's easy for you to say that, but like life hasn't been
Well, that's
imposed
true.
on you. It's
Well, that's true.
true.
That's true.
It's objectively true, but is that a good argument for not taking advantage of what you can do? Or
I, I think it's like a false paradigm. It's like
okay,
things are shit for people, but they should still be responsible.
okay,
And like, should things be unfair? Like, obviously not. Like,
right.
who would argue they should be unfair? But that doesn't mean that the system works like that. So, like, do the best you can anyway.
Okay, so I guess like I want to offer tips. Like I want to like have like a something to say about it. Like, yeah, we have this predilection towards this direction, but can you claw your way out of it, or what do you do to avoid not? I mean, I agree that there are times when you'll do 3 weeks without ever talking to somebody, but I know that you need to do that because it feeds
Oh,
your NI visions. Like,
I'm not saying it's bad or good. Just that's a thing that we do, and like I think it can be healthy. I think it can be unhealthy as well. It depends why you're doing it.
right? Okay, yeah. The rabbit hole is actually fun to be in, but when you come back out, when you're like coming down from it, it's like that's when I think you feel the most depressed, like coming out of it. And then it's like, I need to tell someone about it, I
Yeah,
think.
and then yeah, and then people just won't care. Like some people will. There we go. That's some pretty shitty advice. Find people that care about what you think.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, that's why I think the INTJ has a very small inner circle of people that
Hmm.
understand them, will be open-minded to them, will let them talk, and then at least feign or be like, okay, well, ask a question, tell me more about that, but not just immediately glaze over and back out of the conversation.
Yeah, I think finding someone that wants to challenge your ideas is very important, and not in like an argumentative, belligerent way. Like they're actually curious about what you think, and they either want to comprehend it to better themselves or to challenge you, so you have to better yourself. And I think that's a good place for an I to be for any thinker to be at.
Okay. So, do you have, I know you have another channel with an INTP, so is that a good match for you intellectually?
Yeah, because he's very orientated in regards to how systems operate. So I kind of have a desire to produce systems so that it works well together because I can get the best systems if they're being critiqued by people that are very good at critiquing things.
There's two things that almost don't make sense in clash because, like, if there are no actual morals, you're just deciding what your morals are. You're saying
Yeah,
just decide what yours are, and that's positively good for you, even if it's bad for society.
there is certain addendums to that because
Okay.
I can't be you versus the world. That's a bad model. So the ethics that you engage in must be like fair games of engagement. So it's like if other people were to do the same ethics, they would get good results as well as you. So everyone doing them must get good results if they adhere to them. If they don't adhere to them, then that's not your responsibility.
Okay. So, do you have an example that you can share? Because I'm trying to think of one that would be universally
Yeah,
applied that would be good.
yeah. Like I won't steal from you,
Okay.
and you shouldn't steal from me. But if you do steal from me, then I have the right to get the thing back or to do something in return because you're not like adhering to the ethical structure.
Okay. So, there
And that one,
is
that one is pretty obvious, but it gets more complicated.
no, I get it. I get it. Because then you get into like ethical things like, well, what if I have to feed my family? That's different. Then it's like all that moral relativism, which I don't know if I subscribe to that theory, but it seems like it would come up with nihilism.
Yeah, yeah, and then you'd make different structures around that. So that would inform the way that you would engage in that situation and want other people to engage in similar situations.
Do
You should never lie to yourself. So um I can't think of a way to validate that there is an inherent purpose to things. And even if you believe in like an afterlife or like a or like some gods and like why is that inherently important? I just moves the goalpost. And it's like unless it's like the Christian God in that case, then it's true because it's defined in that way, but which is poor reasoning.
Okay.
So yeah, um, so you should never lie to yourself. Therefore, you should be a nihilist. And but that doesn't mean that things are bad. It means that like you are responsible for figuring out what is ethically appropriate and designing games of engagement that are ethically appropriate. So it's your responsibility to do that.
And you say your, as in, we're talking to the INTJ?
Oh, like yours, mine, everybody's.
Okay. But in particular, it's harder for us to do it, or it's more imperative that we do it as a type?
I might agree with that. Um,
Okay.
Wait, do you think it's more important? Well, okay, so if you're designing structures, and then you should design structures of ethical engagement. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've done that. I mean, I think that is, I think that comes out of FI, does it not?
Well, the desire to does, I think,
The desire
right?
to.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like I want to feel okay. But the actual figuring it out, it would be a intellectual process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it goes back to like our first interview where you just basically said that like you have a mechanistic understanding of other people, but I think you can apply that same method to like there's a more like I can apply that thought process to ethical structures. Like
Yeah.
this is the right thing to do in this for humanity at this time in civilization, but I don't actually feel that way. I just know that it's the right structure to set up.
Yeah. Like that could happen.
Okay.
That seems like it might be incongruent. Um, but that could happen, yeah. That's especially because your emotions can lag behind if you're an INTJ. It's like you might be doing a thing but not know how you feel about it until afterwards.
That's a good point. I was like lagging behind. What do you mean? Okay, got it. So then okay, and then all of a sudden you figure out like the reason for that action, or you then think
Well, I
about,
think you'd have the reasons, but you wouldn't have the feelings.
okay,
Yeah, so like maybe like I'd get into a fight with somebody and then not feel anything about it in particular until afterwards. Being like, oh, this is how I feel about it. When it comes to why I think that INTJs are more likely to be nihilists, I do think it is a function thing, and I'm not sure if I expressed it appropriately beforehand, because it's a cluster of different events that will happen to the average INTJ, such as trying to help people and then that just not working because they will not adhere to your structures. Um, at least they usually won't. and then and then uh, like I think that the INTJ is the most likely to have a degree like the most solitary type by default.
Mhm.
And that's good and bad. But because you're the most solitary type, you're gonna spend time by yourself at some point. And then that's when you're gonna start to think about that stuff. And then you won't necessarily identify with the group that you're in, like the culture that you're a part of. That you'll probably have like a meta view of humanity at large, and then not identify with any particular group within humanity. So you might be just like these, like you get the pieces, but you don't see yourself as the pieces.
Okay, that's a really brilliant point. I've also heard this whole meta perspective as part of NI, but let me ask you this because you kind of talked about, you not being a puzzle within your current civilization or the people around you. Like, there are many people that I have met that I went, you know what, you were born in the wrong time. Like, you're more of like a 1920s guy. If you were born back then, you'd fit in so much better. Do you think that INTJ does not have a time period to fit? They're just always going to be outside of on the
I
fringe.
I I I I think that the role of the INTJ is to be the type that is the responsible for understanding overarching structures. So that is going to be culture regardless of the time period.
Yeah, there. So I was talking to Alexis Kingsley, who you know, and I think I actually interviewed her after I saw your interview with her. And we were talking about I'm not one of those people that just has to go out and do it. Like I like to read a lot about the subject before I then take the TE action. And a lot of people believe that like you don't need to learn from other people's mistakes, just go make the mistakes yourself. That's how you learn. And I'm like, I like to get
Well,
a baseline understanding of like the industry, tips and tricks, and then go do it. Right? How are you on that?
I think that there's a wealth of experience in failure, so don't do it yourself if you can get away with it. Right?
Yeah, what a waste. Such a waste of time.
It's like it's more efficient to not do that.
Yeah.
Like providing you can learn it. Um, in some situations you can't like you can't learn what that is because it's like a subjective thing. Like learning what your failure point is, for example, on like a physical level, is something that you can't learn properly from textbook.
That's totally true. Yeah, so I was reading David Goggins Can't Hurt Me and all his like physical like his I don't know, he tried to break the 24-hour pull-up record and I was like, how long could I do that? And I like you're right, there's no way to really know
Yeah.
on a physical sense. Okay.
Well, okay, so let's assume worst case scenario for anyone that's listening. Um, you are in a state where nothing matters, your life sucks, and you feel terrible all the time. What would you do?
Well, first can we identify exactly is it the people around you? Is it your physical environment? Do you have a bunch of assholes around you that are actually causing you to feel this way? Because that's one of my favorite quotes is like, before you think life sucks, make sure you're not surrounded by assholes. So like, is there
Yeah.
actually something for like parents, siblings, colleagues? Um, and then I try to identify FI, what your actual motivation is. And I do not let them get away with an answer that is, I don't know what I want. Because a lot of people are afraid to say it. They're afraid to think it's awkward that if they think like if I really tell them they're going to judge me because what I want to do is not mainstream. So I will make them answer what their motivation is.
It can also be really embarrassing, like to admit to yourself.
What you want to
Like,
do?
yeah,
Yeah.
like sometimes like I want to be an artist. You're like, that's stupid. Like, yeah, it is.
It's so dumb. Yeah, but
Yeah. Or it can be like embarrassing in a different kind of way. It's like, I want a girlfriend. It's like it's embarrassing to admit to if you don't know how to talk to women.
and it could be it's not always doesn't always have to be as grand as like I have a career, you're right. It could just be like I'd like to get a girlfriend.
Yeah,
That's so that I think that's the thing where you have to identify that motive, that driving factor, and just do not let them get away with not with giving you something false. Well, I just need to get a new job and that'll fix things. It's like it's probably not that. Like that's
yeah.
a cop out answer. And then the other thing would be, I don't know. What do you say? I think I only have two responses to that, really.
Never lie to yourself because
Okay.
that'll only make things worse. And by not lying, I mean give yourself as much access to your information as you can, and then identify what you want to do. Make sure that it's make sure that's achievable. Like like if it's something like I want everyone to like me, like that's unachievable. Don't try.
Right.
You're wrong. You're
You're
wrong to
wrong.
want that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, your unconscious is just wrong about wanting that. That is a stupid thing to want. Yeah. So like make it possible and then work towards that in definable ways so you know if you've succeeded or not.
Okay, so that's a good point. So if they give you something that's unreasonable, impossible, then you know either that they're really, really misaligned, or that that's not actually what their motivating factor is.
Oh, it could be. I think just people just have wrong intentions sometimes. It's like I want everyone to like me. It's like you can't because they contradict your states. Because if someone will like you for not liking other people,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that's definitely a thing with FE users, particularly.
Yeah, yeah. So that'll be a bigger issue if you have FU in a high position.
Okay.
It's better to master a thing than to be okay at many things.
Yeah. So what? Okay. So what's it for you? What's your mastery of? typology?
Well, I'm very good at understanding how people operate in in like a mechanistic sense.
Right.
Um, the utility, well, I mean, that's kind of why I got into typology to begin with, and that's also why I designed a new system. It's like I know I know people can't work like that, so how can they work?
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
Now, so for those who are didn't hear at the beginning, though, Gabe from Rational Typology and I are doing a series called Functionally Delusional, which is his phrase, freaking beautiful. And if you haven't followed their channel, for the longest time, they've been doing interviews with all the 16 types, asking them 16 questions. It's been going great. I see their follower count and view count going up. But now recently, you've been doing couples. How's that going?
yeah.
I only seen like 2 or 3 so far. So, what has the response been? Feedback there?
Pretty good. Yeah. I think people need to know how to do a relationship.
How to
Like
do a
it's
relationship? Yeah,
well, it's not trivial and it's very important. And people think it's easy. It's like you're bound to fail if you think that. Come on,
yeah.
this is this is like serious. This is serious stuff.
So, Gabriel, thanks so much for being here again. This is great. I really like this series. So this was a topic on nihilism. I hope that we provided some like semi-useful tips for the INTJ. If you're going through like a fatalism part of your life where you think that nothing matters and you might as well just, end it now. That's not what we want. You can turn this around into like a very positive way to go about life. So don't resign it to being like, I have no control. That's
And
what I would say.
never give up truthfulness, because like if you do that, then you'll mess up worse in the future. So truthfulness to yourself, not necessarily people around you.
Authentic. So not authenticity, so that others think you're authentic, but true to yourself, being authentically
Yeah.
you to yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see you guys on episode 3 of Functionally Delusional.